It's a nice, slightly overcast day here in Long Beach. And we talked last week about the changing of the seasons, right? We're moving into fall. We're moving into the second half of the year, into the cooler part of the year. And so along with that, whenever we see seasonal changes like this, particularly this seasonal change, we often see immune challenges. So we're going to see, hey, good morning, Renee. Good morning, Teresa. Hi, Abahita. Good morning, everyone. So we see a lot of challenges. Ren, hey. Oh, Ren, it's so good to see your name there. I wish I could see your faces. This is why Zoom is better. Because in Zoom, I could see all your little thumbnails. In here, I just get to see your names. But it's nice to see your names. I conjure y'all up if I've met you in person with your names. And even if I haven't, I feel like Teresa and Abahita, I know you because you are always here. And so, yeah, you're someone I love seeing every week too. Passion Herbs, hi, good morning. Okay, so what we're gonna do today is we're gonna make a tea blend for immune support. It's, for different bodies, there's gonna be different seasonal changes, these disruptions that are going to trigger these immune challenges. So some people are going to see them going from spring to summer, right? Going into that heat and dryness and irritation and inflammation. And some people are going to see it with this change in the cooling days. Can you hear? Going kitty, hi. Can you hear the cat yelling at me? This is our little feral cat. And for years, I've been trying to make friends with this guy. He's got one little clipped ear. Just maybe 2 months ago, he started to let me feed him and pet him. And now he's coming up to the back door and demanding food. And that's so good. I love that he's demanding food. Love, love, love it. Super cute. Black with little white individual hairs everywhere and beautiful golden eyes. So he's totally gonna own me soon. We actually had a little orange cat that adopted me and would come marching in here in the middle of class. Some of you might remember that because we called him Friend. He was just the most personable cat. Whenever anyone would come into this classroom, he'd be like, hello, welcome to my home. I'm glad that you're here. Sit anywhere. And someone came in and adopted him because I took him in and got him fixed and everything. You're feeding 2 ferals and one lets you scratch his ears. 2, I started making their food and they love it. Oh yeah, isn't it such a wonderful thing when they let you touch them? This one is actually rolling over and doing the belly exposure and so love it. Anyway, he can wait until after class to get his dinner. I know, baby. Oh, look, wait. You can see him. Let's see. Look, there he is. Meow. Hi, friend. Hello, look how brave you're being. I know. Oh, he's never come in before. Hello. Totally not a big deal. I'm just gonna ignore him because that's the way you do it with cats, right? I'm just gonna ignore them. But that's a big deal that they're at the door. Okay, so we're gonna make an immune support herb blend for these changing seasons. Hey, look at the kitty. Look at the kitty at the back door. Is he still there? Did he run away? Was standing right at the door demanding that I feed them. Oh, it's so adorable. They'll come back. I did get it cut. I know, isn't it so adorable? Sweet, sweet, sweet kitty. Anyway, all right, y'all know how distracted I get with animals coming around. This one even more so, but that's okay. So I'm not gonna be distracted anymore. Here we are at class. We're focused on here. I think now that you're here, the cat will see you and think, not too sure about new people, and so maybe I will be less demanding, which is great, and I'll get them after class. You have a Bengal. The fur. Bengals are just so beautiful. Yeah, my cats are amazing. Okay, we're gonna make a tea blend. That's what we're doing today. We're making a tea blend, but I'm gonna use herbs that maybe you're not familiar with, right? We have our ideas of what herbs support us during these challenges to our immune system. So what are herbs that you think of, you folks online, and you also, what are herbs that you tend to think of when you're thinking of making an immune support tea blend? Right? And whatever ways that looks like to you, remembering that when we talk about immune support, there's no single immune system in the body. We can't point to one area like we can the cardiovascular system or the digestive system or the musculoskeletal system saying that's where the immune system is. The immune system is the functioning of cells and organs and tissues and enzymes and chemistry. It's all working together, and organisms, right? So reishi, astragalus, reishi, yeah. Astragalus would totally be my first one too. Astragalus, reishi, echinacea would definitely be probably most people's first one. Echinacea, yeah. Yeah, give me some more. Oregano, cleavers, oregano. Yeah, great, great, great. Elderberry, tulsi, yeah. I mean, just looking at this, right? Combine this licorice, lemon balm, yeah. Licorice. Y'all are good. Yeah. Great. So look at this. I mean, if we just threw all of this together, it really would make a pretty good formula. Wouldn't work well. So why wouldn't we want to combine all of these together? Right? What would be the problem if we just said, yay, there's a list of immune herbs. Let's just throw them in a pot and we'll cook them up and drink it down, right? What would be the challenge? Calendula totally could be in there, yes. I'll sneak calendula in here. Yes. Noheli, hi. Hi. Good to see you. Yeah. What are the challenges with putting all of these into a blend? Ginger. Too many. Sure, that's definitely one of them. Too many when you have so many. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 herbs here. So each one in a serving, you'd be getting 1/11 of a dosage. Different actions and temperatures, exactly. You're not really sure where it's going or what it's doing or what you expect the function to be, other than they stimulate the immune system, which we already know is kind of a different thing. The flavor, yeah, could be overstimulating. Throwing ashwagandha in there. Some wouldn't be best served with water. Ooh, yeah. So there's one big point. Roots and berries will need to be decocted. Renee, you get 10 points. Because yes, all of you made very good points as to the inadvisability of just throwing all of this to a pot and calling it a cup of tea. But the primary thing that Renee pointed out, look at what we've got here. We've got astragalus, reishi, ashwagandha, echinacea if we're using the root, licorice. These are all dense materials, right? So those dense materials, how do we generally extract those? What are we going to do with those? We're going to make a decoction. Yes, absolutely. So if we're decocting those, and along for the ride is also oregano and tulsi and lemon balm, then as they are simmering for 15 minutes, for 30 minutes, for a couple of hours, particularly if we look at reishi, because the mushrooms really need to be decocted for a very, very long putting that. Yes, put that in your points box. Yes, you should also wave it in front of Khan too, because they'll just love that you got 10 points. So yeah, so if it's not that you can't make a formula that has these, it's that you need to separate them out. And so you would make your decoction separately, combine the plants that are appropriate in a decoction separately, boil the heck out of those, really, really extract those. And at the very end, you can throw in something else. You can throw in all of the aromatics and then let them steep, let them infuse. Yes, so that would be, so yes, too many, we don't need that many options and the different parts. But another point was brought up as well from Tuco and Kitty, and that is that some of the chemistry of this is best extracted in water. So most of it is pretty good, but reishi, if you're going to be using it for the immune support, it's fine to do a water extraction. And for this, well, if you're using it specifically for extraction of the polysaccharides that stimulate the immune system and regulate the immune system, a water extraction is fine. If you are also relying on reishi to be an adaptogen, because you know that an adaptogen is good for regulating the stress response that contributes to immune dysregulation, right? You wouldn't be getting that from the reishi because the constituents that have that quality in reishi are not extracted in water. So you wouldn't be getting that. But Marcos came in with ashwagandha as another adaptogen. We've also got licorice as an adaptogen. We've got tulsi. So we've got a couple of different adaptogenic herbs that are there that we could give that long-term effect. So maybe we wouldn't be relying on reishi for that adaptogenic quality, in which case the reishi could absolutely be there in that decoction. Does that make sense? Because that's a little bit of complex chemistry there, but it's important. It's an important distinction to remember. You always want to consider the solubility of the plants that you're looking at, right? All right. So I'm not using any of these herbs. Rhodiola, gosh, Abakita, I hate rhodiola with a passion. Rhodiola and I get along so poorly. Other people love it. Other people really, really love it. The thing is, have you ever had it in a tincture? I've probably given it, have I not given you? This is rhodiola. I have a tincture here. Oh no, that's Stellantis. That's a different one. Where's my rhodiola? Hold on. Hold, please. I need to reduce some of these labels. There we go. Rhodiola is one of those plants that I always like to give as a tincture, even if someone's going to be taking it as in a capsule or a tablet. You should have it as a tincture. I had it when it was a tincture. Brought a lot of clarity of mind. It felt draining at the end of the day. Also lost your appetite. Interesting. Someone pointed out when we were talking about the complexity of a formula like this, the energetics, right? The flavors, the temperatures, the energetic qualities that they're kind of all over the place. Rhodiola is one of those plants with a very strong energetic pattern. And you don't get that if you take it as a tablet or a capsule. You never get that sense of the immediacy of the sense of the energetics of rhodiola. Lori, hi. Hi, rhodiola is great for depression. Yeah. Rhodiola is really stimulating, right? It's really stimulating. It's really energizing. What is it doing to your mouth right now?
Making it like fizz a little.
So it tightens up. Yes, it's really strongly astringent. It's one of the most astringent plants. Whenever I'm teaching the flavors and mouthfeel of energetics of plants, rhodiola is the one that I give to people to feel the feeling of astringency, right? It is really, really, really tonifying in those energetic spectra that we look at to understand the other ways that a plant works on our bodies. One of those areas is the structural energetics, right? Plants are either tonifying, right? They're tightening and firming, increasing the tension and tone of our tissues. We need that tone and tension of healthy tissues, right? That's one side of the spectrum. The other side is lax tissues that have no tone. They're just kind of open and relaxed and leaky and weepy, and they just kind of break apart, right? So healthy tissues are somewhere in the middle, and different types of tissues require different types of structure, right? If you have an external structure like skin, we want a really nice rigid tone to that because that is defining the external barrier of our body. But if we're looking at a mucous membrane, we don't want that. We want things to be able to pass through because we have saliva, we have nutrient absorption, we have enzymes. There's a lot of kind of stuff that needs to pass back and forth. So tonifying of tissues can be really, really beneficial. But we also want to look at the constitution of the person who's taking it. This is, by the way, nothing to do with today's class, but it's really, really important, so I'm glad you asked about it. We look at the constitution of the body, and we've done this pretty regularly in classes. You're becoming hopefully pretty familiar with this, looking at, does the body that we're looking at, are they presenting with a lot of heat signs, right? Do they have a lot of inflammation? Are they holding a lot of fluid? Are they very, very dry? The other pattern that we tend not to look at as much, but it's also very important, is are their tissues nice and toned and tight? Are they loose and leaky and open? Are they somewhere in between? Something like rhodiola. Rhodiola is a tonifying plant. It's strongly tonifying, and you can feel that when it touches your mouth because immediately those tannins go. But it has that effect throughout the body. It causes the body to increase in tone and tension. It increases kind of nervous system tension and muscular tension. And that's why I think Abhijita and Lori, that it is often used for depression, for mental clarity, for energy. Because when you have that kind of, that increased kind of tone in your body, you're going to be more energized. In a body like mine, which is already hypertonic, I have a lot of tone and tension in my body. More does not feel better, even though it's coming with the adaptogenic qualities, because rhodiola is an adaptogen. And so it has some really beneficial effects on the body, and it could be very good for my body, except that energetic pattern that it has is so strong that it does not make my body feel good. Plants that are adaptogenic with an energetic pattern that's more neutral, that's more in the middle, are going to be happier for a wider range of people. But you will see a larger subset of people who don't like rhodiola because of that very strong energetic pattern. And it's just like something like ginger or cayenne, right? There are people who just don't like heating herbs. And so irrespective of the beneficial effects of ginger and cayenne, it's too hot for them and they don't like it. Very much like that, this is too tonifying for me and other people who have hypertonic bodies. Right? Maybe not good for someone who has lots of tension due to stress or trauma. Exactly. It could contribute to anxiety, right? Because that hypertonic, vigilance, that's an increase in vigilance, an increase in, tighten your muscles up. Do that right now. Just kind of lift your shoulders up and tighten your and feel how your nervous system feels when you're doing that, right? When you do that, when you're increasing that tone in your body, your nervous system, because your nervous system doesn't have access to information outside. It has to understand what's going on from the information that your body gives it. And so when our muscles are tight like that and our shoulders are up, our nervous system goes, there must be a monster right there ready to attack. I am going to respond with a stress response, right? If we can relax those muscles and say, look at me, I'm just relaxed and chill, my shoulders are totally down, the nervous system says, must not be a monster, because we're not exhibiting the responses of monsters. if we take a plant that increases that tone and tension, that can inform our nervous system, there must be something to be aware and vigilant about, right? There must be a reason for that, right? I know it's a fascinating way of thinking of and working with plants, and it's a really important part of working with them. Didn't mean to go off topic. You know me, anything is going to make me go off topic. I remember it being adaptogenic, absolutely. It's immune supportive, yeah. So it is absolutely adaptogenic, yeah. It's just not, yeah, it's just such a strong energetic. What if you made a decoction with something like marshmallow or slippery elm to help with the heating energetics? Well, it is tonifying. Remember that marshmallow and slippery elm are moistening, but rhodiola is tonifying. So it's a different energetic pattern that we're looking at. I mean, so you could throw in some prickly ash. That would be an opposing energetic. That's actually a really interesting concept. That's a really interesting. That's how you would adjust that energetic path, right? So we'd want the more or valerian. God, two plants that I really hate. Valerian and rhodiola might be really good. That's all we're going to talk about. That we're going to go to immune plants now. Okay, so. But thank you for a fascinating conversation. That really was a really, really fun conversation. But now I'm going to get to where what I was going to be teaching for the class today. Thank you, yes. So we are going to be making an immune support tea, but we're not going to be using any of these herbs that y'all came up with. You're very mindful brain collaboration with each other. That's great. Not using any of these. Not a one. I was really, really happy as y'all were saying them because they were the plants that I expected, because they're the plants that we all go to for immune support. But what we want to remember is that the immune system is a big, complex thing, and there are so many ways to engage with it, and that there's a lot of different plants that have effects on the immune system. So just because you don't have echinacea doesn't mean you can't make an immune support tea, because there's many different ways that we can engage with the immune system. So we are going to blend. I've got 8 herbs here. Do I want to use all of them? No, I'm going to take this one out, because I like odd numbers in my blends. And I have no reason for that. I just like that. So 7 is happier to me than 8. So I'm taking one out. All right. So we are going to, as Renee pointed out, we don't want to combine different plant parts that aren't going to extract. So one of the first things I did when I was going through my apothecary and looking at everything that I wanted to bring in here, I was very mindful of the fact that we wanted to have, because some of the primary plants that I wanted to use were leaves and flowers, that kind of set the tone for, all right, I guess I'm working with leaves and flowers right now. If the first plants that you kind of think of in your formula, maybe you're just like, really, I want to use ashwagandha, and I want to use ginger, I want to use licorice. That's great. Your base, is going to be roots. And so you're going to round that out either with more roots and other decoctable herbs, or non-aromatic leaves and flowers. Now, we do sometimes tend to think that we can't use any leaves and flowers when we're making a decoction. It's not true. You can use leaves and flowers. They just need to be decoctable. So like one of the plants that we're going to use in our formula here is red clover blossoms. Red clover is a very good plant for respiratory support. We tend to remember red clover for elimination, for phytoestrogenic qualities, but it has a long history of use for respiratory support. It's a very calming, nourishing, gentle expectorant, and because it has a really positive effect on the lymph and all of the kind of eliminative channels in the body, what we want to remember is when our body has an immune challenge, when it's fighting off something, there's a lot of metabolic waste, old dead cells, pathogens that accumulate in the body, in the bloodstream, and because the immune system is doing its job. And so we want to, while we are supporting our immune system, we're also going in, and you don't need to do a detox, you don't need to purge yourself, you just need to be giving some gentle love and support to those organs, those systems, particularly the lymphatic system, because the lymphatic system is also where a lot of our immune cells are born. And so red clover is a great plant for that too. So we always love it when we have a plant that can fill a couple of different qualities. So we've got red clover. And we do like the blossoms of red clover. For some reason, this year, and also about this time last year, it became really, really difficult to find red clover blossoms, really good quality red clover blossoms. So I don't know why. But you can use, another lymphatic plant. If you didn't have red clover, use some, whatever you have around. But red clover is what we're going to use here. So red clover is also just a great, anytime you have kind of any type of congestion, red clover is a good plant to work with, especially for children. Sometimes, if you don't have mullein, if you have mullein around, sure, use mullein, but we're using plants that we're not generally immediately thinking of, and mullein is a plant that we're always going to think of for the lungs, right? So if you don't have mullein, you've got red clover. Red clover is a great one. Another good plant to use, oh yes?
You're saying that can be used in a decoction.
And red clover, because it's not aromatic, thank you, yes, that was an important part of what I was bringing up. Because red clover is not aromatic, and because the chemistry of red clover is very, very stable, this could absolutely be thrown into a decoction. In fact, there's a very old eclectic medicine called Trifolium forte, which is just red clover decoction boiled down until it turns into a thick, black, sticky mass. And it's used for skin growths, for skin cancers applied there. But yeah, you just boil it for days and reduce it down. So yeah, so it can be thrown into decoction. It can also be used as an infusion. Another plant that we're going to use for lung support, you have white clover here. So the clovers are not, we have white clover here too. Red clover doesn't grow abundantly here. It will grow certainly, and it'll probably grow for you. But the chemistry of the different clovers is significantly different, so they're not interchangeable. White clover, I believe, is a mellilotus, as is yellow clover. Is that right? If white clover is a mellilotus, then I would not use it as a replacement for the red clover, which is a trifolium, right? Let's see. Another plant that we can use in place of mullein for lung support is coltsfoot. Coltsfoot, one of the classic herbs for respiratory support. So coltsfoot, the botanical name is tussilago. Tussilago, when you see that root word tussa, that means cough. That's why Robitussin is called Robitussin, right? Because it has that root word of cough. So tussilago, the plant, is named for its ability to help with coughs. It's very good for a spastic cough reflex. When people have, like in whooping cough, you'll see this, right? Just some people just get this cough, and it triggers that spasm, and you get this cough, 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 cough. So it helps to relax that. Now, it is important to notice, to be aware that if you have, coltsfoot's very good as an antitussive, something that decreases the cough reflex. We want to always think, before we shut off a reflex in our body, we want to think about the ramifications of what happens when we shut that off. And coughing is one of the ways that we expectorate, that we get rid of mucus. So if we have a lot of congestion, a lot of goopiness and stagnation, we're coughing, you can just hear all the gross wetness in there. Taking an antitussive, even if it's an herb, is going to be at cross purposes for how we want to support our body, because what we want to do is get all of that mucus out of there. And so suppressing cough reflex maybe might not be the best thing. However, if you are going to bed and you've been coughing all day long and you just need to rest, you need to sleep, you really do. If you are sick, you need to sleep. And if that cough reflex is keeping you up, if it's stopping you from being able to rest, or if it's just causing you stress because it won't stop all day long, you need to take care of yourself. You need to quiet that down. Yes, we want to honor the body's ability to get stuff up, but come on. So you can give yourself a little bit of grace and a little bit of some quiet, and take something like cold sweat to help to quiet down that cough reflex. One of the things that we do want to remember about cold sweat, mullein can be taken long-term for for lung support. Red clover can be taken long-term for lung support. We don't take cold sweat long-term. We take cold sweat short-term because cold sweat does contain a small amount of pyrrolizidine alkaloids. These PAs are also what you hear about in things like borage and comfrey, most notably in comfrey. The amount is small. I don't consider it to be a problem. And the forms of PAs are not really toxic PAs, but they are there. And so I think that's fine to use short term. I wouldn't use it long term for general support of lungs, though some people do. Off topic question. I use cold sweat for back pain because the only herb I could find at the moment, the large leaf rolled and made wet, help put on your back. Did you imagine the relief? How cool. Well, I don't know, because I've never been anywhere where cold sweat grows enough for me to be able to work with the plant. It would not ever grow here in Southern California. But mullein is used in much the same way. Mullein leaves are used, applied as poultices specifically for lower back pain. So I would maybe investigate that. I don't know. I think that's fascinating. I think that's really, really cool. What made you do that? Was it just like, I don't know, my back hurts, I'm going to see what happens if I do this, which is totally something I would do? Or was there like a traditional usage that you were aware of, or something that made you think of that, or just intuition? I'm fascinated by that. That's really, really cool. Yeah.
Good question. How long is short-term usage?
A month. Yeah, I think a month would be good. You were just drawn to it. Yeah, sometimes it's really fun just to play with plants like that and just say, what happens if I do this? Yeah, very cool. And you found out, right? That is the scientific method at work right there, going kitty. Well done. Really good question was just brought up. What do we mean by short term in terms of the use of cold sweat short term? So I said about a month, and that's based on the Commission E recommendations. The Commission E is a regulatory organization based out of Germany that does assessments of plant safety and chemistry and stuff. And in the Commission E monograph for comfrey, the recommendation is that people can use comfrey for 2 weeks out of a year. Generally, an adult using comfrey 2 weeks out of a year that would cause a mild enough effect on the growth of the hepatic portal vein that it wouldn't be necessarily a problem for people. By the time it became a problem, your age would be progressed enough that who cares? Given a relatively healthy liver and a relatively healthy vasculature. So riffing off of that, those recommendations by the Commission E is how I just kind of came up with that. I don't know, about a month would be what I would guess for cold sweat. Well, I just use it internally, but you don't. So I would maybe play with that. Sandra, hi. What about goldenrod? Absolutely, goldenrod could be, and that's the thing, right? There's so many different plants that can go into a formula like this, but goldenrod is a great one, particularly if you're looking at immunity where the sinuses are what you're kind of more focused on. Goldenrod has a lovely affinity to the sinuses, and general for reduction of inflammation throughout the body. It's such a good general anti-inflammatory, but it really has an affinity there. This formula, just because this is what jumped out at me today when I was grabbing it, seems to be more of a lower respiratory support formula, right? Because we're looking at the coltsfoot and the red clover. Of course, if we wanted a full respiratory support formula, we could do red clover and goldenrod, right? Infinite varieties of plants that you can throw together. So absolutely goldenrod. Love goldenrod. Okay, so we've got coltsfoot, we've got red clover, honeysuckle. So honeysuckle is a plant that people get a little bit disappointed with when they come in, because you think honeysuckle flowers, oh, that sounds delightful. That sounds like it's just going to be just joyous and happy. They're not aromatic. They're not tasty. They're somewhat bitter. These are honeysuckle from Chinese herbalism. Although they are the Lonicera japonica. It is standard honeysuckle. There's a lot of different species and cultivars of honeysuckle. Do your research. If you have Lonicera japonica, awesome. There you go. You have medicinal honeysuckle. I don't know if all of the Lonicera species are medicinal or not. So before you harvest, do your due diligence and find out. But honeysuckle blossoms are one of the primary plants that is used in Chinese herbalism. This is a plant of TCM for acute infectious conditions like a cold or a flu. Right? So this, we can think of sort of honeysuckle as being similar to echinacea in Western herbalism. It is the flowers, that's right. It's just the flowers. So no vine, no leaf, just the little flowers. And it's so disappointing that it doesn't smell or taste, or you don't get any of that, but that's okay. But honeysuckle, very good for stimulating, for that immediate short-term stimulation of the immune system, which is what we want if we're dealing with an acute infectious condition like a cold or a flu, a virus that's coming in. So honeysuckle we're going to use in place of the echinacea that everyone expected would be in the formula. Let's see, another kind of deeper immune support plant that I like to use that we don't use often enough is olive leaf. Olive leaf, so it grows well here. Yeah, well, honeysuckle, that's the thing, is that it will just kind of take over. When I was a young child, like 10, I used to pull off the orange flowers from what I believe to have been a honeysuckle and suck out the sweet nectar that was inside. Absolutely. One of the most delightful things about honeysuckles is being able to pop out the end and pull out that little nectar ball. I've grown red clover, but it doesn't come back the next year. Yeah, I wonder. I wonder if you have to wait for it to set seed and then catch it. I don't know, Lori. Maybe just buying new. I mean, it's so nice when they self-seed, and I don't know, maybe that one just doesn't self-seed. You're growing 9 olive trees. So olive, thank you for getting me back on track. Olive leaf is a strong antiviral, and so it's a very good plant to have in immune formulas. It's got a little bit of bitterness to it. I like the flavor. It's bitter and astringent, but it's nice in a blend. And there's some specific effects for influenza virus using the olive leaf. So we like to throw there. Can you put other herbs on whiteboard? Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I started to write them and then I totally got distracted. So we had red clover. We have coltsfoot. And we have honeysuckle. And we have olive leaf. Okay, we have 3 other ones that we're throwing in there. Yes, thank you for asking that. Hyssop. Hyssop is, plant that some people are familiar with, other people are not. It's a member of the Lamiaceae family. It's in the mint family. Was there a substitute for coltsfoot? So coltsfoot and red clover are the two that have sort of the respiratory support. Our clover, that's red clover. Substitute for a coltsfoot would be like mullein. Yeah, mullein and coltsfoot are very, very similar in their qualities. Hyssop is related to thyme, oregano, right? It's not quite as spicy as those, so it has a little bit more of a neutral energetic pattern, which is really nice. If you're making a formula for a wide range of people, you kind of want to stay in that neutral area. Sometimes you're like, nope, I'm making this formula to burn something out and I want it to be spicy. That's great. Or I'm making it to be cool. That's fine too. Right? I love this hyssop. I want to show you, get it close there because you can see those little purple flowers in there. Isn't that just adorable, the adorable purple flowers? That's from Oshala Farm. Look at the purple flowers. They're so cute. When Lamiaceae plants are in flower, that's when the aromatics are in the highest concentration in the leaf of the plant. And so they're showing mindful farming practices by waiting until the plant goes into flower and then harvesting there. Licorice hyssop, is licorice hyssop the same? Licorice hyssop. That's a hard thing to say. Licorice hyssop is, I think, an Agastache genus plant. And so I think that it isn't. I might be wrong about that. I don't like licorice flavored things, so I don't seek them out. But I think it's an Agastache. Genus. And so it would be different. And there again, we all have the eternal problem of the common name when we Korean licorice hyssop. Yeah. Check to see if look up this as the genus and see if that's it. Yeah, it makes sense. Actually, antispasmodic. Yeah. So hyssop, aromatic, warming, stimulating. Hyssop is also a plant for the respiratory tract. It is very, very good. It's one of the primary plants that we want to go to for any kind of congestion, stagnation, excessive mucus production. It is a really wonderful plant for that. So, and it's got a really lovely flavor and fragrance to it. It isn't licorice scented. This one, pine needles, I'm kind of about, just because the last 4 years have made some of us a little bit titchy on the subject of pine needles because there was a lot of misinformation and weirdness around their use, and by anti-COVID people who would say that people who were vaccinated against COVID would shit. Anyway, bad science made poor pine needles take the brunt of stuff. Pine needles are perfectly fine, and I'm trying to give them some love so that they recover from humans' inadvisable usage of them over the last couple of years. Pine needles, aromatic, warming, dispersing, breaking up mucus, strongly aromatic, because those beautiful essential oils in there, right? So lovely. And then the final one, some of you might be surprised to see me say this, especially given what I just said, is anise. So anise and fennel seeds, so anise and fennel, very, very similar in chemistry and in flavor, are very good for excessive mucus when there's a lot of congestion and stagnation. They're antispasmodic for coughing. They're aromatic whenever you have a plant that has a lot of essential oils and aromatics. Aromatic compounds are antimicrobial. It's one of the reasons why plants make them, is because that inhibits the growth of pathogens. anise and fennel are very, very, very good when there's a lot of mucus that just kind of needs to be cut, thinned, and expectorated out of the body. So I'm throwing it in there, and I usually throw it into most of my immune and respiratory support formulas, even though I don't like the flavor. There's a lot of other flavors going on here, so it won't taste overtly like anise. And if you like anise, then that's a great way, because a lot of people do, it's a great way to kind of more direct the flavor of the formula, right? Bump that up and you're gonna have an anise flavored tea, and that might just be delicious for you. Collected pine needles from my abuelito's tree in my front yard, made bundles, and also just have plain needles drying right now. How wonderful. Oh, so beautiful. Anise and pine needle are used often in my culture. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so those are our 7 herbs. We do not have agastache in there. We do have pine and anise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What am I missing? Hyssop, thank you. And hyssop. All right. Boy, it took 45 minutes to get those, but we talked about the cat a lot. So we have our herbs, and now we're going to look at our formula, our ratio of plants that we want to work with. So if we start with a default understanding of we could just do equal parts of everything, this is a good way to start, and just say, how would that type of a formula look? And you want to see, is there anything that would just kind of stand out as, wow, I want more of that one. I either want it to be, I like the flavor more, I like the action more. Is there anything that stands out for you in this? One of the things that stands out to me is I really love hyssop, and so I would like to have maybe 2 parts of hyssop in here. Red clover, I'm good with only 1 part because it's super fluffy, so it's going to take up a lot of room. Coltsfoot, I want to keep it at 1 because we're looking for a wider range. Honeysuckle and olive leaf both have a pretty strong action, and they're pretty bitter, so I'm going to keep them at 1 part. I think that's a good amount. We can certainly increase the total amount of tea that we're drinking if we want to do that, and increase the dosage. But if we wanted to make it a more therapeutic one, we could formula, we could certainly increase those. We could absolutely increase those. In fact, maybe we'll do that. Yeah, we'll increase it. Why not? We'll make it a more therapeutic formula. So we'll do 2 parts honeysuckle and olive leaf. We got 2 parts hyssop, 1 part pine and anise. These are stronger aromatics. I'm going to keep them kind of low in the mix. Yeah. And so if we have this as our formula, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, and we have 10 parts, and 10 parts makes for really easy math. So we're going to start there. We're going to say that the formulation gods have smiled on us and have given us 10 parts to our formula. We're going to stop there and take the gift. So we've got 2 parts hyssop, 2 parts honeysuckle, 2 parts olive leaf. Those are our primary plants in our formula, and that makes sense given what we're looking for. We're looking for something with respiratory support and immediate immune boosting. Nope, it's just regular anise seed. You could certainly use the star anise, but I'm just using the regular anise seed. And then 1 part each of red clover, and then pine and anise. That's a nice formula. I think that would be really good. So if we're going to make, then we're going to decide how much we're going to make. I'm just going to make a small amount of this. I'm going to make an ounce of the formula. Because I've not made it before. I don't want to make a huge amount before knowing what it tastes like, what it feels like. So if I'm making an ounce, and I think that we have 10 parts, we're making 1 ounce. 1 ounce is about 30 grams. So 30 grams would be our target weight of herbs that we're making. And if 10 parts is in 30 grams, 1 part is going to be 3 grams, right? So 1 part is 3 grams. Did you see what I just did there? If this is something that's unfamiliar with you. We have 30 grams total as our total volume. We have 10 parts to our formula. So we know that 10 parts equals 30 grams. So if we do 1 part, we divide that by 10, we get 1. We divide this by 10, we get 3, right? So 1 part is 3 grams. Yeah. And so we'll go in here and we'll say, well, this is 6 grams, 3 grams, 3 grams, 6 grams, 6 grams, 3 grams, 3 grams. And if we count those up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we've got 10 threes, and that's 30 grams. Always double check your math, because maybe you did something wrong, because that happens. But I didn't. That's correct. And so that is our formula. It's a nice formula, isn't it? Yeah, I think it'll be a good formula. We'll check that out. So now I'm just going to weigh out our herbs. And of course, when you're doing this yourself, you're not talking and explaining everything. Ooh, come here and smell these pine needles. Isn't that lovely? Smell these pine needles. They're very, very aromatic. These are pinyon pine needles that were collected for us by one of our suppliers, who also gives us pine resin. If you've ever seen our pine resin that we get, scratch and sniff. I know y'all need scratch and sniff phones. Okay, pine. Anise is 3 parts. That doesn't smell nearly as yummy. Pine, anise, coltsfoot is 3. Now the pine and the anise don't take up a lot of volume because they're pretty dense, right? Being heavy roots and seeds. This is going to be much fluffier. There's a lot of air in here. All right. So there's our coltsfoot. And then red clover. We have the red clover blossoms. Significant difference between red clover blossoms and red clover leaves. And again, I don't know why red clover blossoms have become hard to find all of a sudden, but it's worth hunting them down if you're using them. So those are all of our 3 gram parts. So now we're going to go to 6 gram hyssop. Okay, and 6 grams of olive leaf. I'll show you what this looks like when it's done. I love one of the things that delights me about blending is just looking at just the visuals of the herbs when they're blended together. They're all so beautiful, and it's always different. It's always just a little bit different. One of my favorite things in the Apothecary is blend teas for people, because I get to do this. Just people come in and say, hey, make a tea blend, and I go, okay, I can do that. And we do basically this version right here, and we come up with something that looks like, here is our finished blend. So we have, you can see the honeysuckle blossoms and the red clover blossoms and the pine needles. You can't so much see the coltsfoot or the little things there, but they're there. It's a nice scent. It's not going to release a lot of the aromatics until the hot water hits it, right? That's when the steam is going to release. So I've got hot water here, and I've got my jar. Don't need a big jar because it's just has to be a little jar of our tea blend. So I'm going to bring water to a boil. I don't bother with tea balls or bags or whatever. Get a jar, put your herbs in your jar, pour the water in your jar, pour it through a strainer when you're done. That's all you need. That is all you need to make your tea blends. Everything else is just stuff. It's fun to have stuff. Actually, if you like to have all of your beautiful tools and toys to make your tea blends, then that is how you should make your tea blends. You should make it in whatever way gives you the most joy. You could absolutely use white pine. White pine is much more traditional. If you look at most of the Western herb books, they're going to particularly specify white pine, primarily because most of the books are written by East Coasters, and I don't live on the East Coast. I live here, and I don't have white pine. You smell your jar of pine needles. That's how you do the scratch and sniff. I just give you a list, and y'all go to your apothecaries and pull the jars out. Cynthia, hey, so good to see you. On a side note, I also use red clover for the joys of postmenopausal symptoms. The blossom relieves me best. Absolutely, I do the same. The blossoms have the isoflavone content. That's where the phytoestrogenic qualities come from that. That being said, as I don't know if you just got here, I was talking about, it's been a little bit difficult, a little bit challenging finding red clover blossoms these days. If you can only find the leaf, then sure, go ahead and use that. You can also use alfalfa as an alternative. Alfalfa is another Leguminosae family herb, right? And so that's what I was using when I could not get any red clover for anyone. I was substituting with whatever I just said, with alfalfa. But the flower is the best for that. So we're going to pour our water over our herbs. We brought that to a boil, and we're going to let it steep. And the reason why I just like to use a jar with the herbs in it. Wow, this is hot. This is very, very hot. Woo! The reason that I like to do that is because whenever you put your herbs into a ball or a bag or anything like that, you're restricting the flow of water over the plants and thus the extraction, the ability of the water to be a solvent. That's why the water is there, is to be a solvent. And anything that negatively impacts the solvent ability is going to negatively impact your ability to extract the herbs. And so if the herbs are just in the water, then the water is going to be able to completely go in and saturate the plant material. It's going to be able to extract fully and completely. When you're swirling it around, you're changing you're changing the water that's coming in and getting exposed to the plant material. You're just going to get a much stronger blend and less stuff to clean up. So let's see. Boop, 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 hip, hip. No more tea balls. Yeah. I mean, tea balls they make things easier. And sometimes you need easy. So if you need easy, you need easy. But a jar and a strainer. That's how I make my teas. Jar and strainer, and then something to strain it into. Then you can rinse out the jar. Put the tea back in here, and now you have a jar full of tea. Throw that in the fridge. You got a jar full of iced tea. So, always be careful to get well-made tools that do what they're supposed to do. This is supposed to stay, and it doesn't stay. And that's an annoying thing to have in your apothecary, is something that's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's a little thing, but it ends up being a big thing when you're in a hurry, right? It's not worth it. Just give it away, throw it away, take it out of the apothecary, and get one that does its job. All right, so we steeped. I would probably let this steep for a longer period of time, but it is almost noon. So I'm going to pour through my strainer. Hot, 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 hot. We have our lovely tea here. And now is the moment of truth. This is the reason why we only make a small amount to begin with, because we do want to see, I did make those with that higher concentration of honeysuckle and olive leaf. And so that was going to increase the bitterness quotient significantly. There you go. But number one if I was a Chinese practitioner, they take it as a badge of honor to have nasty tasting teas, and many other Western herbalists too, not just TCM practitioners, but yeah, some people just think that if my tea tastes good, then it must not be helping. I think that you can have both, mostly. Oh, this is very nice.
Yeah.
This is a lovely cup of tea. This is beautiful. Yeah. Trish Jack's mom, I rarely ever use tea bags. The herbs or tea leaves don't have room to dance in the water when they live. To dance in the water, I love that. That's exactly it. Yeah, they just don't have that room. And particularly, if you are using anything that's mucilaginous. So say we had put into this formula, which we very much well could have, some cyprien or marshmallow, and we had it in a little tea ball or a tea bag. Mucilage it's big and it's thick and it holds on to moisture inside the plant material. So the mark that's left over here is filled with mucilage. The mucilage is filled with tea. It's absorbed the tea. And so it's really hard to strain mucilage out of a little tea ball or a tea bag. Strainers are always going to give you much, much, much better action if you have a mucilaginous plant too. But yeah, any plant, I just think. I only steeped it for, maybe 5 minutes or so. It wasn't very long. I would generally steep it for longer. And that's a very good point, eyes open. It is likely that it would increase in bitterness significantly, and we'll try it later if we let it steep for an appropriate length of time, which would be about 10 or 15 minutes. That would be better. The water need to be at a certain temperature. So for this, I'm bringing the water to a full boil and extracting it. If you have plants, if you have a formula or you have plants that have very high tannin content, like green tea or black tea, any of the teas, of course, are very high in tannin content. And that's one of the reasons why in the traditional tea ceremony, there's time to bring the water to a boil and then time for the water to sit. And that sitting allows the water temperature to drop down a little bit so that it's not at 212 degrees, right? Boiling temperature when it hits the herbs, because when it's at boiling temperature, you're going to extract more of the tannins. So it's going to be more bitter, it's going to be more astringent, right? And so if you have a tea blend that has plants that have a lot of tannins in it, and you don't necessarily want those tannins to be in the tea, right? Sometimes they're part of the medicine, sometimes they're not. Then you'd want to, if it is a lot of tannins and you're trying to minimize them, you'd want to do that same thing. You'd want to bring the water to a boil, let it sit for a couple of minutes to let it cool down, and then apply it. But otherwise, no, everything in here was pretty good at extraction with a full boil. So I just poured boiling water over it. So generally, boiling water, steep for about 15 minutes is how I would strain it. The amount that I used was about a heaping tablespoon per cup, primarily because look at this blend that we made. There's a lot of fluffiness there, right? There's a lot of air in here. And so if you have a more dense tea blend, a heaping teaspoon might be fine, or a stronger tea blend. A heaping teaspoon might be fine, but I tend to like, heaping tablespoon of fluffy material per cup is a pretty good amount for me. I am not one of those 1 ounce of herb per pint of water people. I think that the volume of plant material exceeds the ability of that volume of water to be fully saturated with the chemistry. And I think you end up wasting plant material. I think, you just can't extract. There's only a certain amount of extraction that you get until the water is full of stuff. And then after that, you just have wet plant material. And I think that's what you get when you do a lot of the 1 ounce of water per pint. And the way that you can check that is do an ounce of water per pint and drink that, and then make one with a 1/2 ounce of water per pint and drink that, and you're not going to notice much of a difference in the flavor because the 1/2 ounce per pint was able to saturate fully the water. The rest of it was wasted. And that is just, not great for the plants. Like polypharmacy, do we need to be cautious, aware of interactions, good or bad, between different herbs? Yes and no. The biggest interaction between plants. So plant chemistry is already incredibly complex. Each plant has hundreds and hundreds of plant compounds. That in itself is polypharmacy. That in itself makes plants different from biochemicals, right? We're not working with a single constituent ever. We're always working with an incredibly complex mishmash of compounds. That being said, there is one primary, this is not the only one, but this is the one that I'm going to do right now because it is noon and I want to stop here. The primary interaction that you see in formulation with herbs. Does anyone know what it is? Because I've talked about it in class before. There's one interaction that you want to be mindful of in your herbal formulations. Do you know? Does anyone know? Oh, Renee does. Renee, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you're still there. She's going to be like, ooh, crickets. Nope, Renee has left the building. Oh, now I can taste the anise in there. And it's not bad. The anise is in the bottom. Okay, I won't wait for y'all. Tannins. We were just talking about tannins, right? So tannins are grabby. Tannins bind to things. And tannins, you know that tannins are in a tea because they bind to the, you're eating, the primary interaction between herbs. When you're making an herbal formulation, the interaction, the primary chemical interaction in an herbal formulation. But I just said it, so. Also, what are you eating? No, tell me later. Tannins are grabby. They're going to grab onto stuff. When you drink a tannin-rich tea, they're going to grab onto the protein in the inside of your mouth, and it's going to feel astringent. That's what you felt when you put the rhodiola in your mouth, right? Those were tannins grabbing onto the proteins. Tannins grab onto lots of different stuff. The primary things that tannins like to grab onto, they grab onto proteins. That's not a thing that we need to be cautious of because proteins are generally not part of the chemistry of plants that we extract as herbalists, right? That's part of the chemistry of plants that we extract as food, but not as herbalists. So the protein binding, not an issue. However, tannins also grab onto minerals, and this is an interaction you want to be mindful of. If you have a tea blend that has a high amount of tannins in it, say you are extracting, for example, rose, right? And then, or green tea. Let's use green tea because it has green tea. You have green tea in your tea blend, and then you think, oh, I'm going to make this really nourishing, and I'm going to throw some oat straw in there. So you have a green tea and oat straw blend. On paper, that sounds beautiful, right? And in many ways, it is very beautiful. But it's important to be mindful of the fact that the tannins in there, as soon as the water hit that and they started to release, the tannins started to grab onto the minerals that were in the oat straw. So the oat straw is releasing minerals into solution, into the tea. It's releasing silica and magnesium and calcium, the three primary minerals that are in oat straw. And then those tannins are grabbing them, making insoluble mineral tannates. So the calcium and the magnesium and the silica that are in the tea are, to some extent, calcium tannate, magnesium tannate, and silica tannate, insoluble molecules that you can't absorb. They're going to be pooped right out, right? So that is one other interaction. Another interaction that tannins have is that they grab onto alkaloids. And so any alkaloidal chemistry will also be grabbed onto. So here you can think of if you're working with blue lotus and you make a tincture of blue lotus and you add into that green tea, right? Blue lotus has the two primary constituents in blue lotus are alkaloidal, right? Primarily, blue lotus is medicinal because of the alkaloids. And so your green tea that you add to your blue lotus, again, sounds lovely on paper, a tincture of green tea and blue lotus. Oh, that's so lovely. Throw some rose in there too for some more, beautiful loveliness. The tannins in the rose, the tannins in the green tea bind to those alkaloids in the blue lotus, and they are no longer bioavailable in your formula. So that tincture that you have that's made up of those formulas does not have the active alkaloids from the blue lotus that you think are in there because they're grabbed, because they're tannate form. Yeah, it's very important. Yeah, this is the primary chemical interaction that we see in herbal formulas. It's more than that, but I've run out of time, so I'm not going to give. But this is the big one: tannins. Whenever you have a plant that has high amounts of tannins, you just want to be mindful of what is that herb going to grab onto in my formula, and do I need to either offset that by putting in more alkaloids or more minerals, or do I need to choose another plant that has a lower amount of tannins so I'm not going to have that interaction? Yep. Yeah, I know, the chemistry is so fun. If you have bags of tea from a good company that you bought, would you be able to cut it open and let them loose when you're making tea? Totally, absolutely. Yep. Slip them open and just throw them in there. They're a finer particle size, so more of it will come through the boop-a-da-boop when you're straining it. But that's okay. You can have particle size. All right, I'm going to let you folks go because it is far past our time. But fun day today, even though I was all over the place in subject matter. We got it done, right? We got it done, and we got some other fun stuff. I know. Abhijita, this is how we all should have learned chemistry. If all of us learned chemistry in this way, it would have been fun, and we would have been able to apply it directly, right? We would understand it because it all makes sense. Like, oh, I can visualize that, I can see it, I can feel it, I can taste it, right? We are chemists. We're doing chemistry right here. Every Monday we're doing chemistry. All right, I love you all. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.